All right, now 3 o'clock. What's going on, my friends? Trailblazers blown out by 45 last night by the Grizzlies. 7th worst loss by margin in franchise history. Coach Billups was asked about his message to the players following the game.
You know, my message to them was really, I told them that anybody that sleeps well tonight, you're a loser. It's just that simple. You're a loser. You sleep well after this one, you're a loser. That's how I feel.
All right, Portland now 3-8. They'll play the first of back-to-back games at home against the Timberwolves tomorrow. Tip-off set for 7. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day at 5, presented by Coors Light. The team honored longtime voice Brian Wheeler last night, who passed away Friday at the age of 62. Longtime friend and radio partner Kenny Vance is going to join me at 4:20. Oregon remains number 1 in both polls after Saturday's win over Maryland. New batch of college football playoff rankings comes out tomorrow, with changes expected with both Miami and Georgia going down on Saturday. Oregon State will meet Air Force Saturday in Colorado Springs. Head coach Trent Bray joins the show at 5:20. All right, I was sitting in front of my television yesterday watching the Broncos and Chiefs, and you got to look back at the week. It's been a very, very bad week for me personally. It started off with losing my partner, the Godfather Dwight James, and also another brilliant coworker, Justin Myers, because of, corporate matters, which most of us have had to deal with at some point or another. So it's been a rough week. And then we got the word on Friday that Brian Wheeler, the longtime voice, 21 years with the Portland Trailblazers, had passed away at the age of 62. He was a good friend. I worked with him for many years. He would have given anyone the shirt off his back. It was very sad and somber to get that news right before we went on air, before the Trailblazer game on Friday against the Timberwolves. So, starts out bad, it ends bad. So I'm sitting there watching the Bronco game yesterday, and I'm thinking, you know what? It's been a brutal week, but at least my team, with their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, who just drove his team down the field in 13 plays and did it the way you're supposed to do it, to set it up where there's no time on the clock. You kick a 35-yard field goal, which is essentially an extra point. You win the game. You defeat Patrick Mahomes. You give Kansas City their first loss of the year. And at least the week can end on a good note. These are all the things that are going through my mind in like a 5-minute period, as I was watching Bo Nix calmly and coolly just work the football down the field. The Bronco defense had played well. They put themselves in a position to win the game, and they're down by 2 points. So what do you want to do if you're the Broncos with like 6 minutes left on the clock and you get the football? And you get it at the 40 after the Chiefs made a big mistake on the kickoff, and they got penalized for it. Broncos get the ball at the 40. Well, it's pretty obvious. You want to score with as little time on the clock as possible. So they get it down there inside the 20 at the 18-yard line, and they call a timeout with 1 second on the clock. They're coming out. They're lining up for a field goal. And this isn't college football where you can't trust any kicker on any team anywhere in the country. This is the NFL, where players have specific jobs, where special teams are basically automatic, where lining up for an extra point or a 35-yard field goal is a given. You're not worried about it. You go out there, you block, you execute the kick, and then boom, you go home with a win. And one of the biggest wins in recent franchise history. So I'm like, good. Finally, I'm going to get some good news, and I can celebrate this great win. The Broncos go to 6-4, and then guess what? They are right in the thick of things in the AFC playoff race. Or so I thought.
Lutz waiting for the snap. Placement is down. Lutz's kick is blocked! It's blocked! It's blocked! The Chiefs blocked the kick! They're going to stay undefeated! The Kansas City Chiefs blocked a 35-yard field goal attempt! Kansas City wins this game on a blocked field goal! The Kansas City Chiefs are 9-0.
I hate the Chiefs. That's what it sounded like on the Kansas City side. Let's take a listen to Dave Logan on the Denver side.
An attempt of 35 yards for the win. Snap, placement, kick on the way. It is
blocked. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, me too.
I really am at a loss for words. 35-yard field goal blocked with 1 second to go, and Kansas City is going to get out of here with a 16-14 win over the Broncos.
Yeah, don't worry, Dave. I'm with you. When you get kicked squarely in the nuts, you rarely have the words. I was at a loss for words too, but I just looked at the TV. I just shook my head, and I'm like, yeah, figures. I should have known when they lined up for the field goal based on how my week had gone that it was going to end up just like that. And then come to find out the Chiefs, well, they noticed a weakness when checking out the Denver Broncos on film.
Our special teams put on there at the end. It ended up being one of those kind of games, back and forth, and arguably take it down for the winning kick. And then Leo steps up and does what Leo does every week. Somewhere he makes a play. Defensively, special teams, somewhere he steps up and makes a play. And he did a great job.
Yeah, thanks, Coach. Really appreciate that. The worst part is the guy that got blown up on the Broncos special teams unit in protection was Alex Forsythe, who is a local, a former Oregon Duck, and a very good young man who really cares and works really hard. And apparently he's not very good at absorbing that type of pressure. Chiefs noticed it, and they attacked him with multiple guys, and he got blown up. Game over. And what's really crappy is that when you go into a game like that, and I thought the Broncos would match up well based on what they've done the last few games with their defense and the way they attack Patrick Mahomes, they did all of the things you need to do. They didn't turn it over. They limited Patrick Mahomes in the passing game. They were great on first and second down. They put him on the ground multiple times and hurried him throughout the course of the game. They outrushed the Chiefs. They held them to field goals. And they get in position with a 13-play drive and take all the time off the clock. And you can't execute a kick? You can't block and protect for a kick from 35 yards out? Whatever. Here's Bo Nix after the loss.
Got to play with ultimate confidence. We're playing with confidence. We just got to, again, just find a certain way, throughout the game, whoever it is, just making a play. But I felt confident going into the game. We had a really good plan. We executed early. But, I was excited to go, toe-to-toe with the great. Nobody had that opportunity today, but I did. So I wanted to go out there.
All right, there's Bo Nix. Good leadership after the game from the young quarterback. And Sean Payton, he understands it's a direct hit right in the package.
Felt like we outplayed them, but we didn't finish. We had an opportunity to right at the end. We kind of controlled the ball. We got to be able to finish. That one will take a while. It'll sting. When you do this long enough, hopefully you're at the better half, not the other way around. There's some tough losses like that. But told our team I was proud of how they fought. Thought we outplayed them.
Now, with 24 hours to reflect on the disaster, and it was a disaster, you can't blow that in that type of situation as professionals, for crying out loud. If someone else is seeing a weakness in your special teams, where's the self-scouting to be able to identify the problem, morons? And I think the Broncos have like 10 special teams coaches. What are you guys doing? You sitting around on your thumb all day long? Gosh, it just drives me crazy. Here's Sean Payton with reflection.
This team has been resilient, so the sky isn't falling, relative to our season, the schedule. We're sitting here at 5-5. Obviously, we'd love to have been 6-4 with a win yesterday. But the focus shifts, quickly to the next game. I like the leadership on this team. Someone asked about that yesterday. It's an entirely different team than a year ago. It's tough mentally and physically. We've got to have a good week of practice here coming up for Atlanta. Overcoming a tough loss, when you talk to the players about that, you tell them that, hey, that's going to happen periodically in your career, and you hope that you have a few of those games that maybe you thought you didn't deserve to win that you did win, and you've got to bounce back either way.
All right, so they got to move on and get ready for the next game. They're going to play the Falcons. Their next 4 games, if I recall, Falcons at the Raiders, and then they come home for the Browns and the Colts. So the next 4 games are winnable, very winnable. In their last 3 games, they finish up with the Chargers on the road. They have to travel to Cincinnati. Final game of the year, Kansas City goes into Denver. And by then, they'll be like 16 and they'll probably be like 15-1, 14-2. So they might be resting guys. So the opportunity's still there. So how many teams get in the AFC? Was it like 7? So if you look at and the reason why that loss was so embittering, look at the playoff chase right now in the AFC. You've got Buffalo in the East. They're going to win the division. They'll be the only team in from the East because the Jets suck as do the Patriots and the Dolphins with the injury to Tua, played themselves right out of the race. In the AFC North, Pittsburgh's atop the division right now. Baltimore's right behind them. We know that both those teams are going to be postseason teams. The other wild card team that we'll have to keep an eye on is the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 4-6 coming off the Thursday loss to Baltimore. In the South, you've got Houston at 6-4. Indianapolis is in the mix, but they're 4-6. And frankly, after watching them play, they're not a real contender. And then in the AFC West, Kansas City, the Chargers at 6-3, and Denver at 5-5. So really, you're going to get your 6 teams in. The 6 that I can guarantee you will be Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Houston, Kansas City, and the Chargers. The 7th spot will come down to either Denver, Cincinnati, or Indianapolis. Denver's still in the driver's seat, but they can not afford to make any more mistakes. But Bo Nix outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the game, and now I'm starting to see signs. I'm like, okay, that guy could be the future without question. So very frustrating. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? They haven't won in Kansas City since 2015. They had the game won, and they blew it. But that's what good teams do. The Chiefs have won back-to-back championships by being well-coached, well-prepared, and they've got Patrick Mahomes. And they find a way to overcome in tough spots. They did not put themselves in a position to win the game yesterday, but because they have such great coaches who identified a weakness, they exploited it and were able to get a field goal block and preserve the win. Now, Kansas City is living dangerously. They're not going to go unbeaten this year, but they're putting themselves in a prime spot to get the top seed in the AFC. And we'll see how they stack up against Buffalo or Baltimore or the other top teams in the AFC once we get into the postseason. Very frustrating. Other things we'll touch on from the NFL today. The Bears need to fire their coach, Matt Eberflus. They should have done it before the year began. Go out and find an offensive guru to take over and start developing your quarterback because he's getting worse. Caleb Williams, not better. But the Bears, what are you guys doing? Eberflus, look at what Washington did. New ownership, new coaching staff, and they went out and brought in a offensive guru in Cliff Kingsbury to work with Jaden Daniels and look at how well he's playing. So the Bears, fire head coach now and start the process. And how about the Steelers leading the AFC North at 7-2? And, oh, by the way, Russell Wilson, a game-winning drive yesterday. And since he took over as starter, they're getting 30-plus points per game. Defense, running game, and big plays downfield with Russ. That is a secret sauce that they have. They have a mentality. They know who they are, and they're very tough. And they're physical. And I love their head coach, Mike Tomlin. And for all the Russ haters out there, that's got to be painful because he's playing well once again, just like he did last year in Denver, but no one wanted to give him credit. I just like Mike Tomlin, and I respect the Steelers and the way they operate. Okay, that was very cleansing. Oh, my gosh, I hate sports so much. Why do we do this to ourselves? I invested too much into that game yesterday. That one stings. Coach is right. That one leaves a mark. That's one of those losses that will stick with you for quite some time. All right, we're going to come back on the Rip City Drive, and when we do, speaking of spicy, we're going to listen to Coach Billups. I've never heard him like we heard him last night following that beat down at the hands of the Grizzlies. No Ja Morant, and they win by 45. 45. And some of the stuff that Coach Billups said was eye-opening. That's coming up next on the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive, Chad Doing here. We're going to switch it up a bit. Kenny Vance, longtime friend and longtime broadcaster in the area, is going to join us now to remember Brian Wheeler, who passed away Friday at the age of 62. And Kenny joins us now from Las Vegas. He's at the Westgate. Kenny, you've been down there for quite some time, for a few weeks. How are you enjoying the Westgate, my friend?
Well, actually, this time I just got down here this weekend. Unfortunately, I got the news about Wheels on my way down on Friday. But I have been making several trips to Vegas in recent years. My son lives down here. I've got very good friends that live down here, including a couple of my best friends who Wheels introduced me to probably 25, 30 years ago, and they've remained among my best friends. They were up in Portland or in Vancouver in July, and I took them on back-to-back days to visit Wheels. And so, yeah, I am in Vegas, and I got the news on my way down. Obviously, very, very saddened. And, there's been a lot of reflection, a lot of fellowship between a lot of us friends of Wheels, and that has been wonderful to be able to have that fellowship and have all the memories. And, I'll just go right on. I really, in remembering Wheels, I really think there's at least two elements to his legacy, but two that I'm focusing on. And professionally, I remember I used to always tell Wheels, I said, "You're not the Michael Jordan of radio broadcasting, but you're awfully damn close." And I really believe that. And, when you have close friends who are doing something professionally, we can obviously be biased, and we can either be too critical and maybe take them for granted, or maybe we can embellish on their talents.
Yeah.
And I really think I did a good job of not being either with Wheels, and I really do not think I'm embellishing. I told him and I told everybody else for the last 20 years, he really was one of the best in the business. He was, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Chad, but he was brilliant. And as long as I knew him, he was the voice of the Blazers for 21 years. As long as I knew him, up until the end of his career, I would still call him occasionally, or back when I was his stats guy and sitting next to him or close to him in section 113, we'd go to a break or something. I'd just have to tell him, Wheels, that was brilliant. It's just uncanny. And I'll never forget the time, I knew Wheels before he got the job. And I met him in Seattle when he was up at Seattle with KJR, and basically he was a reporter and all those kind of things with dreams and ambitions. And so then he went to Sacramento, and they made their decision about the Shawns, and Wheels applied for the job, and he called our friend Tommy Hewitt. He said, "Tommy, are you hearing anything?" And Tommy said, "Well, if you want to know what's going on, you got to call Kenny. Kenny's the one who'll know." So Wheels started calling me incessantly about the Blazer job, and finally he got the Blazer job. And I actually was the one who picked him up at the airport and took him to the Fifth Avenue Suites where he was staying, or where they had got a room for him. And I had never heard him broadcast a game. And if my memory serves me correctly, he did the WNBA games in Sacramento.
Yep.
And I believe he got to do 8 Kings games while he was in Sacramento. So he was a total unknown. And I'm thinking, gosh, this guy's my friend. I'm happy he's here, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if he's any good. And the Blazers did something brilliant. At the press conference, it was in the Rose Room over at the Rose Garden, what I consider the Rose Garden, Moda Center. And before they introduced Brian, they played a montage of clips from his work in those Kings games and in the WNBA games. And they were incredible. And I was so reassured, okay, this won't be a disaster. And obviously it wasn't. And obviously he was brilliant professionally. And I got to let you ask a question at some point.
No, it was great. That's I love hearing your memories because you spent so much time around him. And Kenny, you're definitely in a position to talk about someone being great because you've worked with some of the very best in radio over the years, including John Lund and Kenny Vance. You've been around some great ones, so you would know that. What I thought that was really nice, though, last night was before the game, the Trailblazers, we honored him on the Trailblazers radio network with a 7.5-minute montage, which was terrific. But before the game, they had Mark Mason share the story about him passing, and they talked about some of his highlights. And they had a moment of silence before the game, and then Mark Mason said, "One last time, Brian," and they ripped out Boom Shakalaka throughout the course of the arena. So I was just proud that the franchise honored him in a very classy way, and I thought that was great and very fitting for a guy that gave 21 years of his life to the franchise.
Me too, and I watched it. Obviously, I was down here in Vegas, but I watched it, and I also watched your guys' montage and recalled, and many of those highlights that you guys did in your montage, I was sitting right next to Brian when he called them, and it brought back. I mean, right now I've got chills thinking about it, but. So I watched that, and the one other thing that I really appreciated about last night and what Mark Mason had to say, one of my favorite things about Brian was, and once again, I can say, it's a great day to be a Blazer. And I love that. And I suggested to some people a long time ago that the Blazers should have done something like what the Chicago Cubs do at the end of a Cubs win, and they play the flag, and John Shambi says, "Sing that song," and then they go into the Cubs win song.
Yes,
and I just love that. It's one of the greatest things in sports, and I really thought the Blazers could have come up with some theme, to put on the big screen or something at the end of a Blazer win in the Moda Center to somehow have everyone stand in unison and just have it be habitual every time. And once again, we can say it's a great day to be a Blazer.
It's a great idea.
Among the many, many things that Brian's, professional legacy includes.
One thing that's always jumped out at me when I spent time around him, especially when I was younger, because he was a superstar in my eyes. But what I found to be very interesting with him is I realized that he's also very human, meaning he had insecurities and self-doubts. And I don't even think he recognized or truly realized how great of a broadcaster he truly was. Did you notice that as well?
Well, I think I'm of two minds about that, Chad. Anybody who's great has to have an ego and has to believe in themselves. And in some place in his mind, he knew he was good, and he knew that. But absolutely, you're absolutely correct. He was flawed and imperfect. And Chad, you and I are good enough friends, long enough friends. You and I have shared with each other, and we know that each of us are flawed and imperfect.
Significantly.
And to be honest with you, everybody listening right now is probably flawed and imperfect. And I'm not choosing, yes, the last few years were tough and really tough. And I'm not going to focus on that. And everyone I've had fellowship with and talked to is not focusing on that. And we're focusing on, like I said, the professional legacy. And I didn't get into the personal legacy, but the personal legacy for me is a person who really loved to live life. And, like I'm in Vegas. I made several trips to Vegas with Wheels for Summer League. He was generous to a fault. And, you and I and he went to the James Taylor, Carole King concert at the Rose Garden. He probably paid for those tickets. I can't remember. I'm too old. But
he did.
He probably paid for those tickets. He took me to Jersey Boys here in Vegas twice. I can't tell you how many sporting events he and I attended together, comedy shows, movies, concerts. He loved living life, and he loved sharing it with his friends. He loved blessing others and bringing joy to others. So to me, that's his personal legacy.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess what I regret, Kenny, for me personally, is that in the end, because it was so much to deal with everything he was going through, I didn't have an answer and I didn't know what to do. So I stayed away out of fear. And now looking back, I regret that because I could have at least have been there to provide company and companionship. And I didn't do that. And I wish that I could go back and change that.
Yeah, I do. I understand you, and believe me, I have my whole, self issues with the past few years, and those close to Brian knew that he and I struggled a little bit in recent years. You know me, I can't keep my mouth shut. I grew up in a household where we said what needed to be said. And I just don't have that switch in my body to keep my mouth from saying what needs to be said, and that got me in trouble with Brian in recent years. But I thought there was too much at stake, and so I said what I thought had to be said, and it wasn't always received greatly. But what I'm getting at, and I shouldn't have probably said all that, but what I'm getting at is all of us tried. All of us did everything we could think of, and it didn't work. And myself, I'm at peace with everything I tried. I want everyone else to be at peace with everything they tried. And not only do I want them to be at peace, but like I said earlier, I want them to focus on, the Wheels we knew and loved.
Yeah.
And, and one thing I've said to close friends, and again, I'm being Kenny, I'm revealing way too much than I wanted to reveal, but, I've said to several close friends, Brian Wheeler died on Friday, but we lost Wheels a long time ago. And, and that's just life. And it doesn't change the way we feel about him, doesn't change how much we love him and remember him. And that's about all I have to say.
No, I understand. You know what I want people to know is that when I was young, and he did this with you and with so many people, how gracious he was with his time, his willingness to spend time with you, to listen, to give pointers. And he would do that with everyone. And I was always amazed at how he always found a way to have time for everyone and would go out of his way to say something, to provide encouragement. And for a young broadcaster, as you know, that can mean a heck of a lot, but also to Trailblazer fans or other people you come encounter with throughout the course of town. The way he spent time with people, he made a difference in people's lives for quite some time in that role. And I thought that was pretty awesome that he was able to do that for a guy that had that type of star power.
Yeah, absolutely. He did give of himself and his time and resources, absolutely. And I just want to say before I go, we are so blessed as Blazer fans. We've only had 3 radio voices in the history of the Trailblazers. And Sean's, Sean's, I can't even begin to speak of his legacy. And Wheels, we've just spoken of his legacy. And I love Travis Demers. Travis is a good friend of mine. I interacted with him this weekend, and I fully support him. And I love all 3 of those guys, and I think Blazer fans should feel blessed that those are the only 3 voices that they've had in the history of this franchise.
Well, Kenny, it means a lot to me that you came on to share your thoughts, and he was a very close and dear friend for quite some time, and your perspective is much needed on the program today. And I just thank you, and I hope that you enjoy your time with your son and your friends down in Las Vegas before you come back to the Couve.
Okay, buddy. Thanks so much, Chad.
You got it. There's Kenny Vance. I really respect and appreciate his time on the show today, for coming on to share in this moment of difficulty. And, that's the way we have to remember him. He was a great talent, a Hall of Fame talent, one of the best play-by-play announcers I have ever heard. And the ability to be able to call a game and paint a picture of what was happening and yet take you on this emotional roller coaster ride through all the highs and the lows where you could feel everything he was feeling, that's a talent. It's very special. He also gave his time to many and was willing to share in so many different ways, and I'm always going to respect that. In regards to the personal struggles, we all have different issues, struggles, addictions, or various things that we deal with. I'm no different than him. That's why I can relate to a lot of what he had experienced. And he also had a difficult upbringing as well, which had a deep impact on him, I think much greater than any of us know. So big props to Wheels. I'm going to play the video, or excuse me, the audio montage coming up at 4 o'clock that we had on the program yesterday that Dave Barbera's put together. It's terrific because it's a collection of all of his greatest calls. It's amazing. I mean, his voice so powerful, and the way he could paint a picture was like an artist. That's why I love radio so much, because that theater of the mind, listening, and the active listening that's required to be able to listen and try to put together what the announcer's saying, and then you can visualize it in your dome. Like, I love that whole process. And Brian Wheeler was absolutely one of the best at it. And Kenny Vance is a good friend and a great man. And Kenny Vance is awesome because he wears his emotions on his sleeve. And he mentioned having to tell Wheels some difficult things that he knew that maybe he didn't want to hear, but he felt like they needed to be said. That's what a good friend is. A true friend is someone that will step up and deliver you a message, not just what you want to hear, but in those difficult moments in life where you might be astray or things have gone sideways, or maybe you're making some poor choices or whatever the case may be, the good friend will step up and tell you, like, hey, what's going on, man? And then deliver the message, knowing that it may not be received well, or someone might get mad at you, but you feel like you need to do it because you're not because you're trying to criticize someone, but because you're doing it out of love, out of care. Hey, I'm concerned. What's going on here? And then you lay it out. And, you know, hopefully we all have friends like that in our life that we respect enough to where when they deliver a difficult message, that it's something we'll listen to and try to understand where they're coming from and see how that message might make an impact in our life. I think that's critical for all of us. So there we go. Brian Wheeler. Let's see. I think I have a couple of little side clips here for Wheels. Oh, this one's good. The cotton candy guy.
The floater that rims around and off, and rebound. Adrian keeps it alive. Head fakes, his shot blocked by Aldridge, but Walker controls, then Lillard strips him clean. Damian front court drives down on Henderson as the cotton candy guy's in the way, but a foul is going to be called. And he had a lot of cotton candy and was in just a bad spot.
My bad. I was calling him. I was trying to get some cotton candy. I didn't know it was going to be a fast break opportunity.
Well, the Blazers will have free throws. And the cotton candy guy scattered quickly. Timeout Portland, 5:36 left third.
Yeah, there's Wheels and Tone working together. I like that. Here's one where they're talking about farting.
Does somebody have something with some onions in the nearby vicinity? Because
I would say so. Either that or somebody tooted and it smells like onions.
lost the ball. Roy has it. 3-on-2. Roy to Jack, takes the middle. Behind him to Aldridge. Touch pass, Udoka. Ime lays it in. Oh, my goodness, you had to be here to believe that.
That's what we call funky.
Time.
There we go. That's what we call funky. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We'll play the montage coming up at 4 o'clock. Big thanks to Kenny Vance. Love him for coming on. And we're going to have Coach Bray from Oregon State at 5:20 on the show. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, Tony and Boring says, that was hideous watching my Bears. Not sure who's worse, the Bears or the Blazers. Thank God for the Ducks. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this area that have the same thoughts that you do. Their basketball team and their NFL team are garbage, so they're just thankful the Oregon Ducks are on fire right now and in control of their destiny. Number one in both polls. We'll get a new batch of playoff rankings tomorrow, but Oregon's in absolute control. What's amazing to me is that Indiana this past Saturday won their second game this century against Michigan. They're still unbeaten and now have this big game coming up against Ohio State where if they win, they'll get into the Big Ten title game and face Oregon. Raise your hand if you had Indiana in the Big Ten title game before the year began. What's even more whack is that even if they don't beat Ohio State and they finish with one loss, they're probably going to get into the playoff. That is wild. But this is what we're getting right now with college football. Madness and great games every weekend and so many great stories. And for all of you Coach Prime haters out there, how about Colorado right now? They won again, come from behind victory over Texas Tech. They have the best quarterback in the country. They have the best player in the country, and now are in control of their destiny to get to the Big 12 title game. And with a win in that one, they would reach the playoff. Not bad considering that when Deion came in the year before, the Buffs had won one game and were the worst team in Division I football. It's very impressive. And Shadur Sanders will be the number one pick in the draft next year. The number one quarterback taken, probably the top player taken in the draft because of quarterback need across the league. Speaking of the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys, and I think this is something we can all celebrate, they are a total disaster. America's team is garbage, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy the rest of the season. Now, I'm torn because I like Jerry. Jerry Jones is a fascinating guy to me. I like him. I like the fact that he's willing to talk and answer questions. He doesn't hide. He comes out right in the forefront and answers questions about his team. So I like Jerry to a degree, but I don't like some of the decision-making that we've seen from him over the years. It's about time that he steps down and allows someone to have more control to help get the Cowboys back on track. And this latest is an absolute classic. I don't know if you caught this, but Micah Parsons, after the game, had this exchange. Take a listen.
Mike's on the final year of his contract, so outside there's, of course, going to be questions. What's the sentiment inside the locker room, and what do you tell people who are worried about whether McCarthy will be your coach next year?
You know, that's above my pay grade about if Mike is coaching again next year. But, you know, all coaching aside, Mike can leave and go wherever he wants. But the guys I kind of feel bad for is guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last year on their way out, because that's who I wanted to hold the trophy for. You want to win games and do great things with those type of legends who put in more time and work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So those are the kind of guys that I have so much sympathy and hurt for.
And it's never a good thing when one of the best players on the team just throws the coach directly under the bus. And that's exactly what he did. And I really don't have an issue with it because Mike McCarthy, I've never really thought he was a great head coach. I thought he benefited from having, guys like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. That helps a guy look pretty good as a head coach. He's always been about as exciting, or he reminds me of like a tall glass of Metamucil. I remember my Nana would stir up like a big glass of Metamucil, and the look on his face, you could tell he was irritated. He had to drink it. That's about as exciting to me as Mike McCarthy and the way he runs a football team. Here's what Jerry needs to do. And I don't know if he's got the stones to do it, but this is exactly what he needs to do, and I think he's going to do it. The next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and McCarthy's a lame duck. He doesn't even have a contract. He's in the same boat that Chauncey Billups is in. And McCarthy is going to be gone either real soon, like this season, or they're going to let him go on Black Monday. But he's not going to come back. McCarthy's as good as done. He is walking the green mile right now. So McCarthy's soon to be gone. Bill Belichick will be the next head coach in Dallas. And if you say, well, I don't think that Jerry could step aside and let Bill come in and have the power he wants to run a football team, he's already done it. He hired Bill Parcells, who came in and ran his team and coached it. And if you can let your ego aside to bring in Bill Parcells, you can let your ego aside to bring in Bill Belichick. But this is what they need more than anything. They are a rudderless ship right now. They have no direction. Bill Belichick will come in with his experience, and he'll be a hard ass. He'll be difficult to deal with, especially when it comes to the media, but it doesn't matter. He's going to bring in structure. He's going to bring in discipline, and more importantly, a fresh pair of eyes on that roster to get it cleaned up. And if Jerry Jones is smart and he wants to win before he dies, he's going to realize that, you know what? As much as I think I can do this, I need to step aside and do what's best for the franchise and this football team. And that means get serious about a head coach. Don't talk about Jason Garrett or Mike McCarthy or any of these other puppets that you bring in. Hire a guy that knows what he's doing and will bring discipline and structure and a fresh pair of eyes to your roster. And then all the other minions that try to get their say on things can shut their pie holes. And just let Bill Belichick do it. Come on, Jerry. You've got to return your franchise to greatness. Now, I know your franchise is worth more than any other franchise. You're a very rich man, and you've been very, very successful. But your football team, not so much. You haven't won a Super Bowl since what? 1995? How many years is that? Yeah. Yeah, Brenden wasn't even alive when you won your last Super Bowl, Jerry.
Yep, that's it's kind of the story we were told. Oh, the Cowboys, America's team. Well, nothing in my lifetime. I'm 28 years young, Chad.
I hate that too. Don't. I'll decide who America's team is. Don't tell me. Try and ram that stuff down my throat. Suck it, Cowboy fan. So look, Jerry, I'm trying to help you. I like you. I think you're a cool guy, and you're very funny. And you're willing to step up and go on live radio and have discussions. And no other owner does that, but you do it, and I respect it. And you're very rich, and you've turned the Cowboys into a money-making machine. You print your own money. But your football team sucks, okay? They don't play defense. They're really soft, and now you've got your best player throwing the coach under the bus. Fire Mike McCarthy, all right? Get rid of him and bring in Bill Belichick because, one, he's going to be the right call. Two, he's going to bring discipline. He's going to bring structure. He's going to get you back on track. But most importantly, we all want to see that happen. Do you know how much fun it would be to see Bill at the introductory press conference taking over the Cowboys and working with Jerry? Sign me up for it. I need that in my life. So there you go. Brenden, what do you think about the Cowboys pursuing Bill Belichick?
I think it'd be an awesome hire. Borderline sexy hire, Chad. I mean, again, like everything you said, but Bill Belichick wants to step into a winning situation because, again, the guy is 15 wins away from beating Don Shula. And I know some people have been like, oh, any ego person, any competitor, Bill Belichick would love to have that on his mantle before he, officially calls it. So that's why I said I think he's going to want to step into a winning situation. It's way more appealing to be in Dallas than the other openings. And I think I'm with you, Chad. Jerry needs to go get it done because that would be an awesome person to bring in that building.
I agree. The two likely spots, I think, for Bill are Philadelphia, unless they continue to win the way they're winning, and Nick Sirianni might save his own job because the Eagles look really good right now. And if it's not Philly, then it's definitely Dallas. But that would be too good. And speaking of, well, I just make it happen, Jerry. Come on. Man, clean your act up, Jerry. You can't have that much money and be that successful and not go out and hire the right coach. You're bringing in these tomato cans, and they're getting their ass kicked. And now you got Micah Parsons throwing your coach under the bus because he knows it's shameful, and he knows McCarthy sucks. And the Bears suck, too. How do you get beat by the Patriots 19-3 at home? Well, Eberflus is dead man walking, too. He's out. Might as well fire him now. McCarthy and Eberflus need to be fired. All right, when we come back, we will play the montage of Brian Wheeler. It's awesome. And that way we can properly pay tribute to the great Brian Wheeler. 21 years as voice of the Trailblazers. And like so many of you out there, he was part of the soundtrack of your life growing up. And you got into basketball because of him. And you live vicariously through him with all the different games, the highs and the lows. We'll play that next. And we'll get to the Blazers and Coach Billups at 4:20. It's amazing. Coach Billups, quote, well, I'll just save it. You can hear it for yourself. He opened up the press conference saying that's effing embarrassing. And I was like, whoa, Coach. And then Trent Bray at 5:20. You got the Rip City Drive. Hey, what's up, my friends? It's now 4 o'clock. The Trailblazers got pounded last night by the Grizzlies. A 45-point loss. Worst loss by margin in franchise history. Here's Coach Billups.
You know, my message to them was really, I told them that anybody that sleeps well tonight, you're a loser.
Blazers now 3-8. They'll play the first of back-to-back home games against the T-Wolves tomorrow night. Tip at 7. Chris Burkhardt has game day at 5, presented by Coors Light. The team honored longtime voice Brian Wheeler last night, who passed away at the age of 62 with a moment of silence. Oregon remains number 1 in both polls after Saturday's win over Maryland. New batch of college football playoff rankings out tomorrow. Changes expected with both Miami and Georgia going down Saturday. Oregon State and Air Force will meet Saturday. We're going to talk with head coach Trent Bray at 5:20 on the Rip City Drive. Monday Night Football, 5:15 on ESPN. The Dolphins at the Rams. LA favored by 2.5. More of the Rip City Drive with Chad doing coming at you right now. All right, for those of you keeping record at home, this is my favorite Phil Collins song that he put together with Phil Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire, early 80s. It's such a great song, and it sounds like it came out today. It's got that modern sound to it. All right, Trent Bray's coming up at 5:20. All right, so I want to play this because I think you'll enjoy it, and it's a perfect way to honor the great Brian Wheeler with a montage of his greatest calls, because it gives you chills to hear the power of his voice and to relive some of those memories. So we played it last night on the Trailblazer pregame show, and it starts out with a narration from Travis Demers to set it up. But let's take a listen to the montage and pay tribute to the great Brian Wheeler. 21 years as voice of your Portland Trailblazers, a Hall of Fame radio voice, and a man who loved basketball, loved sports, and was very giving of his time, is beloved in Rip City. And as I've been receiving over the last 2 to 3 days, how many people grew up listening to him and how many people got into the Trailblazers because of Brian Wheeler.
Back here in the pregame show was the Blazers getting set to take on the Memphis Grizzlies. Friday morning, the Portland Trailblazers lost a dear friend as former radio play-by-play announcer Brian Wheeler passed away. He was 62 years old. In his 21 years behind the mic, Wheels was the soundtrack of more than a generation of Trailblazers fans, providing great memories that will never be forgotten. Let's relive some of those right now.
And now, here is the radio voice of the Trailblazers, Brian Wheeler.
Welcome to Portland Trailblazers basketball. Alongside, as always, Antonio Harvey. I'm Brian Wheeler. Happy that you've joined us.
Are you ready to hear the highlights, Blazer fans?
Now the Blazers with the floor spread. Dallas doesn't have to foul, but they need a stop. Miller against Terry out near midcourt. Now with 10 to shoot. 14 seconds for the game. Andre now, top of the key, throws to Roy. Brenden 3 to shoot. Roy, a fadeaway out front from 3. Missed it. Rebound Kid, 3 seconds. Goes ahead to Terry. Get on him, Brenden. A 3 for the win. Missed it. Game over. Somebody's got to pinch me. I must be dreaming. In one of the most incredible games this building has ever seen, in one of the most incredible games this city has ever seen, the Trailblazers rallying from 23 down, closing the game on a 40-15 run, and they rally to beat the Mavericks 84-82. This best of 7 is tied at 2 games apiece, and once again we can say it's a great day to be a Blazer. And has there ever been a better day to be a Blazer? Unbelievable. If I wasn't here, I wouldn't believe what I just saw. 3-on-1. Brenden to the hoop, lays it in, and it's fouled. Oh, Brenden, do it. Do it. Do it till you're satisfied. Timeout, Phoenix. And Terry Porter is confused, concerned, and confounded. You're not a beloved Blazer tonight, Porter.
Oh boy, Wheels. He was rare tonight.
I mean, he was ready.
He was on fire.
Back to Blake, to Roy, 3-pointer for the lead. Yeah! Timeout, Phoenix. They're dancing in the aisles here points. Aldridge now to Roy. Roy 2-on-2. Brenden lob to LaMarcus, jams it. Ooh, that was nasty. And Fisher ends up on his duff. Controlled by Lillard. A new 24. Aldridge, top of the key jumper. Yes! Time out Oklahoma City. And Scotty Brooks is ashamed, astonished, and astounded, fatigued, flustered, and frustrated, dejected, deflated, and devastated, jilted, jaded, and jolted, mystified, mesmerized, and mortified. And I'm going into my next set of words. Doc Rivers is terrified, troubled, and tormented, staggered, stunned, and stupefied. And he ain't the only one in this building. Excuse my grammar with the 8, but it seemed appropriate at the time, and the Blazers would get us.
That's not appropriate?
Well, it's not really good.
Well, I'm from
good
Mississippi.
grammar.
We say ain't all the time. I ain't going to stop at saying ain't, as a matter of fact.
Bang! Pa-pow! Don't go away now. In fact, I think you told Grandma you'd wake her up if the game was this good. So go ahead and do it. Lillard, a long 3. Hit it! He hit that one from Hillsborough. It's 98-96 Houston in the final 0.9 of regulation. Batum throws to Lillard. A 3 for the game. Bang! You gotta pinch me. I must be dreaming.
I'll pinch you.
In an absolutely incredible first-round playoff series that ends in the most dramatic way possible. Damian Lillard takes an inbounds pass from Nicola Batum and nails a three-pointer. There was absolutely no doubt Chandler Parsons ran at him late, but far too late. And Lillard connects as the horn sounds, and the Blazers walk off the court winners 99-98. And for the first time in 14 years, the Blazers have won a playoff series, and they couldn't have done it in a more thrilling fashion. They've done it again. The cardiac comeback kids. Well, butter my bread and call it toast. Could anybody have predicted this? Ooh, that was nasty. Give me some more of that. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. They're dancing in the aisles here in Portland. Yeah!
Well, as you know, our friend, our coworker, the voice of the Blazers, Brian Wheeler, he is out for a bit here at the start of the season, a medical leave of absence.
Wills, what's up, man? It's Dame Lillard. It's not the same without you, my man, so get back soon.
What's up, Wills? CJ McCollum here, man. Just want to wish you the best of luck on your recovery. Looking forward to you joining us again here shortly.
Hey, Brian. This is Nurk. Come back soon, man. We family.
Hey, Brian, this is Coach Stotts. I'm wishing you the best. Look forward to when you're back doing the games. Take care, buddy.
Boom shakalaka.
Westbrook now, as Aminu backs up, put it on the deck, runs into Chief, put the shot up, and missed it. Rebound Aminu. Lillard has it. No timeout. Dame into the front court. Lillard now out front against George. 5 seconds. George backing up. Lillard doesn't want to pick. Dame going for the win. A three-pointer for the game. My eyes don't deceive, so I have to believe. Damian Lillard capping off a magical night. A deep three-point field goal over the outstretched arms of Paul George as it went through the nets. The clock struck 0-0, and Lillard hits 50 points for the night. The greatest playoff game in the history of the Portland Trail Blazers. And the Blazers seize the win after trailing by 15 in the final quarter. They come from behind to beat the Thunder 118-115. They win the series 4-1. And once again, we can say it's a great day to be a Blazer.
All right, there you have it. Kind of gives you chills, doesn't it?
Boom! Chakalaka!
We'll have more.
There you go. There it is. The tribute to Brian Wheeler. Oh, so good. Man, what a voice. What a voice, and some of the great calls that we just heard. Big thanks to Dave Barberis for putting that together. And those audio clips will live on forever. No question about it.
1 minute left in the OT. Turns. A tough fadeaway shot is in. Man, these Rockets won't die.
He was so good. Crazy good. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Well, butter my bread and call it toast.
So good. So good. Now, are you before? Was Wheels before your time?
Wheels, no, definitely during my time. I have some great memories of Brian Wheeler and a lot of good ones there. He was, the voice that I listened to whenever, I was in the car or just in general. Like, I loved Brian Wheeler's voice. I was telling Chris Burkhart when I was on game day with him yesterday. I can remember being on a school bus with, and my athletic team, and we were coming back from a road trip. And I want to say it was when the Blazers played the Mavericks 2011, and we convinced the bus driver to put Wheels on the bus as we're driving home from.
The bus driver do it?
Yeah, no, he did.
Oh,
and it was
nice.
that, and we're all like, can we put on the Mavericks and the Blazers? And I don't think that was the miraculous Brenden Roy comeback game, but still that series, I remember just listening to it, and he was an icon, a legend. Everything that you and Kenny were talking about last hour. We lost somebody who had a huge piece of Portland Trailblazer history, particularly radio history, because like Kenny was saying, there's only been 3, Chad, and one of them is still very new, our good friend TD. So it was definitely a bummer news to hear that, but it's so cool that his legacy lives on. You have so many people who just love to look up his calls on YouTube or what have you, Chad. It's very cool.
No question about it. All right, so we tip the cap to Brian Wheeler, and he's never going to be forgotten. And by the way, Brenden, let me ask you a question. I've never seen you or heard you like this before. What's it like to come into work after a full night's rest and not getting up at 3:30 in the morning?
Well, I'll say this, Chad. I'm definitely a little bit more chipper. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. But
Positive Brenden. This is going to be a new thing.
It could be. It was. I told Chad my alarm didn't go off this morning, but I still got up about 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I was like, ooh, I can go back to bed. And, well, obviously looking forward to being here, but yeah, still a little weird, Chad, not going to lie.
All right, we're going to keep things rolling. When we come back, we'll get into Chauncey Billups, who, well, he threw a grenade on his team for their effort last night, and it's understandable based on what I saw. That was ugly basketball. So we'll dig into that, and then I've got some bigger picture questions facing the Trailblazers as they proceed through this season. But Chauncey Billups, wow. I mean, he did not bite his tongue last night. You're going to hear it next. All right, last night was a rough run at Moda Center. The Memphis Grizzlies came in without Ja Morant and laid a beat down on top of the Portland Trailblazers, 134-89. And according to the principal, Curtis Long, after the game, it was tied for the 7th worst defeat in franchise history. It was ugly from the start as Memphis jumped out quick, and it just proceeded throughout the course of the game. They're up by 20 at halftime, and early in the third, a quick run by Memphis pushed it out to 29, and the game was over. They lacked energy. They weren't paying attention to details on either side of the ball, and no one was able to get it going. And the biggest issue over the last 3 games for Portland, all which are losses, has been that three-point line, and it's been devastating for them. They haven't been able to make shots, minus 21 at San Antonio, minus 48 beyond the arc against the Timberwolves, and last night, minus 36. And it's not like the Grizzlies are a good three-point shooting team. So it was a bad loss. And after the game, Coach Billups expressed his frustration.
I mean, it was just embarrassing. We was soft as hell the whole game. Nobody really fought. It was just embarrassing for everybody, you know. That's just not who we are, you know. It really isn't. There's no excuse for that. And you have a lot of rough nights in this league, obviously. But I don't even care. It just wasn't even that. You know, it was like our guys just showed up because they had to be here but didn't want to play, you know, didn't want to actually work. And that's embarrassing. You know, it's unfortunate that we had to go out there in front of our fans, you know, who paid their hard-earned money to come and see their favorite team play, and we show up and do that. It was embarrassing, man. It was embarrassing.
Wow. It caught my ear when he said we looked like we were there because we had to be there, but we weren't ready to play. He also said it was effing embarrassing. Now, he was also asked about the situation last night, and he really didn't have any answers.
I really don't know where that came from, to be honest with you. You know, we scrap. You know, that's what we do. We don't win all our games, and not even close, but we fight. We don't lay down, you know, and today they laid down. Obviously, I got to be better, you know, about getting them ready, getting them prepared. But yeah, I know I don't believe in that, bro. So this is that one was a rough one.
Now, in the first half, when Memphis was building a massive lead, there was a breakaway where they had a 2-on-0 fast break, and one of the guys went between his legs to one of his teammates for a dunk. And Coach Billups was asked if that type of situation frustrated him as a competitor.
There was a play in the second quarter where the Grizzlies had a 2-on-0 fast break and they threw it between their legs and got a dunk. Did you note that to the players? And do plays like that fire you up as a competitor?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm obviously not going to share what I would have done in a position like that. I wish I was on this team. I would just tell you that. I wish I could be playing on this team in a moment like that.
Someone would have been getting an elbow to the ear for that maneuver, because Billups is old school like that. And he also said that everyone on the team stunk to high heaven.
I'm not just going to pinpoint the one or two guys. They all were terrible. You know, other than I appreciated Delano's effort at the end, Roops' effort at the end. Barry, those guys came in, they played as hard as they could. But for the most part, everybody, they all suck.
That's telling.
Everyone was terrible. They all sucked. Wow. There was also a question about the film and whether or not you go back and watch this game.
Is this a game where you watch the film tomorrow? Is this a burn date?
No, I've seen enough already.
Amazing. But this by far was the one exchange where I'm like, wow, take a listen to this.
It was very simple to me. You know, my message to them was really, I told them that anybody that sleeps well tonight, you're a loser. It's just that simple. You're a loser. You sleep well after this one, you're a loser. That's how I feel, and I mean what I say, and y'all know that. And so we'll move on.
All right, there's Coach Billups. Okay, number one, I respect his openness, his transparency, and the way he communicated exactly what he felt was necessary about the team last night with that 45-point loss to Memphis. And a lot of coaches get caught up in the coach speak. But Billups, while he's a head coach, he's not a long-term coach, so he doesn't get a lot of the coach speak. He just comes out and says what he thinks. So I've always respected the straight-ahead approach for Coach Billups. I respect that. Now, there are bigger issues at play here. Now, the one thing I have not understood since the end of last year going into this season is very simple. The Trailblazers, as you know right now, and we've talked about this, they are the franchise, their top two priorities right now are in no particular order. One, it's a talent acquisition. And this is something that Joe Cronin has talked about at length, that right now they're nowhere near where they need to be in terms of talent. So he and his staff are constantly scouring opportunities around the league to find ways to get young assets to improve the overall talent base. And the young assets come in a couple of different ways. It could be a young player that you acquire via trade, like Denny Avdia that they got on draft night, young player who can come in with a varied skill set to be able to help the team and potentially be a part of the core moving forward. So you've got young players, and then, of course, you've got draft picks. Now, the upcoming NBA draft is going to be loaded with star power, including Cooper Flagg. And that's why we pray to the good Lord above that the Trailblazers can wind up with one of the bottom three records in the NBA and have the best chance possible to get Cooper Flagg, because that would be like you walking out and buying a Powerball ticket and cashing in. It's the same thing. Cooper Flagg is buying the winning number for Powerball. That's what he is. He would change things instantly because the guy's a super stud. And he's also continuing the renaissance of the American-born white player, which is amazing to me, along with Chet Holmgren, who, by the way, is down for 8 to 10 weeks with a fractured hip. Horrible. I've never had a fractured hip, but I don't want one. But you know that hurts. The pain has got to be immense. So talent acquisition, picks or young players. And then next to that is development, meaning coaching and developing the young players on the roster right now, namely Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. And last night, Shaedon Sharpe was plugged into the starting lineup in place of Denny Avdia to continue to get him some more time and development, who's played well since he's returned. And, you know, Avdia is still struggling to find his way with his new team here in Portland. So talent acquisition and player development are the top two priorities right now. But for Chauncey Billups, he's in a different situation. And I feel for him being in the situation he's in from this standpoint. He took the job here in Portland, and when he did, the roster and the way everything was set up was totally different. They had a veteran team with Damian Lillard, and the idea was you bring in Coach Billups, who's respected by the players, and he can bring a more defensive-minded mentality to this team to help them get over the hump and become a playoff contender. That was the idea. But shortly after he was brought in, the general manager that hired him, Neil Olshey, was let go, and then they ushered in Joe Cronin. So the guy that's running the team now didn't even hire Chauncey Billups. And then the direction of the franchise changed after that move was made with Joe Cronin, where they were going to go young and rebuild. And I have no issue with the franchise making the decision to rebuild. I think it was the right call. But the problem is it was a different set of circumstances for Billups than what he was hired on. So in order to put yourself in a position to have access to good picks in the draft, you have to lose games. And Billups played a part in that and was a very good soldier for the team, for the franchise, by losing games. But the problem is that goes on his record. And for Coach Billups, who's in his first head coaching job, and I'm guessing he would like to coach and have opportunities in the future after Portland, he's in a position to where he wants to win games. So your coach wants to win because he's tired of losing, but the franchise is not finished with their rebuilding project, and they've got their eyes set on the lottery for next year. So there's a natural conflict that exists between coach and franchise. And the other issue now is that you have a situation where Coach Billups is a lame duck coach. He signed a 5-year deal. He's in year number 4, but the team has not picked up the option in the final year of the contract, which is a team option. Normally, what teams will do when a coach enters into a potential lame duck situation is they'll either re-sign him or they'll pick up the option on the final year to provide them with a little more security, just standard operating procedure. But Billups is sitting here as a lame duck coach because they haven't picked up the option. From everything I've heard, I don't think they're going to pick up the option, which means he's going to be gone at the end of the year or potentially sooner, a lot sooner. They let him go sometime during the season. They elevate one of their assistants to take over as the interim coach. And then after the year, when you know your draft position, then you can go out and hire your next head coach who's going to take over and develop the young team that you've assembled. So that's the conflict. Your coach isn't necessarily in alignment with the direction that the franchise wants to go. Now, I'm not saying there's not a good relationship there. I think Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups, from everything I understand, have a very good working relationship. But there's just natural conflict in terms of where Billups is at and what he wants to accomplish and where the franchise is at and what they want to accomplish. So it's never – I've just never understood that. Because if you're trying to get in the best possible position to land Cooper Flagg, then make the move to do that. And incur the losses, develop and play the younger players so that you can truly get the data necessary to know what your core is about so you can make the right decisions moving forward. So all I know is last night was really bad with the way that game played out. So just keep an eye on the next couple of games. So they're going to play the first of back-to-back games at home against Minnesota tomorrow and Wednesday. And you have to wonder if the team doesn't respond. Let's just take the worst-case scenario for a moment. Let's say the team doesn't respond and they're playing the Timberwolves, who they don't match up well against. Let's say they get beat down handedly in the next two games at home with a bit of a break between Wednesday and their next game. It wouldn't surprise me if you see a move made at head coach. It's possible. It's a possibility. So it's weird. It's a tough situation. I have nothing but respect for Joe Cronin and the work he's doing. I also have respect for Chauncey Billups because I like him, and I think he was just a victim of circumstance. He came in to take the job, having it be one thing. It turned out to be another for reasons out of his control and reasons out of Joe Cronin's control. And from my understanding, the reason why the Blazers didn't move on from Billups after last year is it probably comes from the very top. It's probably a decision where they just didn't want to let Billups go and pay him and then have to pay another guy to come in and take over as coach. That's probably what's going on. So that's the situation. But messy for sure. But pay attention to how the team responds tomorrow and Wednesday. That should tell us everything we need to know about where the team is at and how things are going. And it's got to be tough for the players, too, because they know that they're playing for a coach, even though they respect him, that he's a lame duck coach. And you've got players who are adjusting to new roles, and you've got your stars like Anthony Simons who are struggling. He's not making shots, struggling from three. He's not in a good rhythm. They're in a tough spot right now. Let's go out to the phones. Jackie in Sherwood wants to check in. Jackie, I appreciate the call. What's on your mind?
Missing Brian Wheeler for sure, and all the alliterations.
I know. I love hearing the calls and his voice. He was such a great play-by-play man, and I enjoy reliving some of those memories.
Oh, yeah. What do you think about starting Jabari Walker? I feel like he's put in a lot of time, especially over the summers. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I appreciate that. I respect Jabari Walker, and I know Coach likes the way he plays, his mentality. A terrific rebounder, a good team guy, always puts himself in the right position. The only problem with that, Jackie, is that there's so many guys ahead of him on the depth chart in terms of guys who you need to play as well at that position. You know, Jeremy Grant's there. He's going to take up minutes. You've got Tamani Kamara, who can also play the forward spot. You've got Denny Avdia. There's just a lot of guys who are in front of him. Not to mention you got three centers as well in both Robert Williams, Donovan Clingan, and DeAndre Ayton. So he's really just a victim of a crowded roster right now. The one thing I know about Jabari Walker is that he has proven that he's going to carve out a nice, long career in the NBA because he understands who he is. He knows what he does best to help his team. He's got something that a lot of players in the NBA don't, a good recognition of what he is and what he can do best. And he's a terrific rebounder. Great instincts, knows where the ball is going to go. He gets to the ball. He does all the dirty work to help his team, doesn't complain, shows up and works his tail off, and he's got a tough mentality. He's very good. But this is a deep roster with many guys at his position ahead of him, and that's going to be part of the issue for Chauncey Billups moving forward. And the other issue, I mean, heck, last year they were so beat up and injured, they didn't have any options. So Billups just played the guys that were there because it's all they had. But now, aside from Matisse Thybulle, who's going to make his return very soon, he's got a full roster. He's got so many more guys to work with. He's not accustomed to this type of luxury in terms of depth. So that's the mess they're in. But pay attention. I think the next two nights, tomorrow night and on Wednesday, is going to tell us a lot about this team, about the locker room and where they're at. And we'll see what the response is. But that was messy last night. Not a good performance. The effort wasn't there. There was no energy. And I'm hoping with a day of rest and give these guys a chance to respond. Normally what NBA teams will do after they get embarrassed like that and lose by 30 or more, they usually come back with a determined effort. Now, against Minnesota, a determined effort may not be enough to get the win, but at least you'll know if they've got the fight, scratch, and claw in them. But if they come out and get pounded again and get embarrassed like we saw on Friday night in Minnesota, and you got Anthony Edwards out there dropping threes like they're going out of style. Remember, they went 22 of 50 from downtown in that game on Friday. If they come out and get blown out again, that could signal that there's a bigger issue going down, that maybe the players are like, hey, I'm done here. We're done with this. So keep an eye on it, but not good. It was bad last night. It was bad. That's why you heard the coach respond the way he did. You don't hear a coach say those type of things unless it's really bad.
It was very simple to me. You know, my message to them was really, I told them that anybody that sleeps well tonight, you're a loser. It's just that simple. You're a loser. You sleep well after this one, you're a loser. That's how I feel, and I mean what I say, and y'all know that. And so we'll move on.
There you go. That's Chauncey Billups. I mean, he opened up the presser with an F-bomb. That's another sign, too. If coach opens up with an F-bomb out of the gate, that tells you he's not very happy.
I mean, it was just embarrassing. We was soft as hell the whole game. Nobody really fought. It was just embarrassing for everybody, you know.
All right, let me go back and count. We got to do this real quick. Let's count how many times he uses the word embarrassing in describing his team's effort last night in the 45-point loss to Memphis.
I mean, it was just embarrassing. We was soft as hell the whole game. Nobody really fought. It was just embarrassing for everybody, you know. That's just not who we are, you know. It really isn't. There's no excuse for that. And you have a lot of rough nights in this league, obviously. But I don't even care. It just wasn't even that. You know, it was like our guys just showed up because they had to be here but didn't want to play, you know, didn't want to actually work. And that's embarrassing. You know, it's unfortunate that we had to go out there in front of our fans, you know, who paid their hard-earned money to come and see their favorite team play, and we show up and do that. It was embarrassing, man. It was embarrassing.
All right, I counted 5 embarrassings. He got the F-bomb, check. 5 embarrassings, check. And he got in soft as hell, check. And that doesn't even include loser, which he got in multiple times. All right, good work, Coach Billups. Hey, Coach, how did that loss make you feel? Oh, it was good. You know, because Billups has got that same cadence. So when he starts a press conference, you get ready to go into nap mode, and all of a sudden you get F-bomb. You're like, whoa, and your ears perk up. You're like, this is not the normal press conference I was expecting here, Coach. And for broadcast purposes, can you please warn us if you're going to go with the full-on F-bomb, please? I know you're upset, Coach, but can you warn us before you drop the F-bomb? That's pretty good. 5 embarrassings, soft as hell, F-bomb. He got an S-bomb in, and multiple losers. That is a complete night right there. That's a season worth of press conferences all wrapped up into one. I mean, that's hard to do, and he pulled it off. But then again, when your team does get embarrassed and beat down by 45 and only shows up because they had to be there but didn't want to fight, that's what you get. All right, Trent Bray is going to join us at 5:20. Do you think Trent Bray used the word loser, soft as hell, embarrassing, or dropped an F-bomb after the loss to San Jose State? I'm not going to ask him. I'm just wondering. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, we got some fresh audio from Trailblazers practice. Let's check in with Tamani Kamara following that beatdown last night, 45-point loss to the Grizzlies.
So, Tamani, what would you say the kind of the vibe of the message was after a pretty difficult loss last night?
We're only 11 games in, so we still got a lot of game left. We can't be too deflated right now. We just need to figure it out. We have a lot of season left, and we have a lot of talent in this team. So I think we're just gonna do whatever we can to get better. I think that's the message right now, and that's the mentality of everybody. Try to figure out a way to win and stay together. That's the most important.
In your opinion, what do you think happened last night?
I think it's a mix of everything. I think we just got to figure out a lot of things as a team. Even though last year it was we had a lot of new guys already, I think we're still trying to get to learn each other, stuff like that. So sadly, our lows are very low right now, but I think we're gonna be able to bounce back pretty good.
What do you think is the most pressing thing you guys need to figure out right now?
Like I said, just keep on knowing each other, keep on learning our teammates, our coaching staff, and stuff like that, and keep on be on the same chemistry. I think that's the hardest thing as a team when you have like 30+ team member, is really try to find a connection within the whole team. So I think that's the biggest goal for us right now.
How did Chauncey's words to the team strike you last night?
I'm sorry?
How did Chauncey's words to the team strike you last night?
I mean, everybody was kind of deflated. It was not nobody expected that result to the game yesterday. So I think it was just going to the next day. Like I said, we have 72 more games, 71 more games. So it's a long season. We can't be sad and too focused on this loss right now so early on in the season. So I think we just have so many good times that's coming up, so let's focus on those.
Rob was talking about kind of the importance of you guys being honest with each other, even if it's kind of difficult conversations to have, and he even kind of posted as like it's a good thing because now at least like we're talking about these things. Kind of how do you feel like that works, particularly in a team setting?
Yeah, I think it was very good. I mean, I think it's something needed. I mean, in every families and in every situation, when you work with people, you cannot just keep your feelings to yourself if you want things to work out. So being able to have a safe space and be able to talk to each other, I think is crucial for our team. And I think it was very productive to be able to have the whole coaching staff and the whole team, all the players like talking and just say whatever's on your heart. And at the end of the day, we humans, we're not robots, so we're just trying to figure out a way to work together.
In particular kind of leading that conversation on the team, or was it just everybody in general speaking up?
I mean, it was Chauncey for sure, bringing up the conversation, starting us off as the head coach. I think it's something that he's been doing pretty good. It's show that he's trying to lead us in the best way that he can. And I mean, a lot of us participate to the conversation. Yeah, I think everybody had their roles to be played, and we have a lot of leaders in the team that were vocal today and was able to speak their mind.
You guys have a game tomorrow against Timberwolves who you just lost to. What do you guys need to do better tomorrow in order to come out with a better option?
I think where we are today, the only focus is ourselves. We can't really get too ahead of ourselves. We need to figure out what we got going on first before worry about other teams. So I think we just got to play our way, be ourselves, and stay true to what the coaching staff try to pour into us and stay positive, man.
What's it like having Rob and Shea back?
It's a lot. It's a lot of positive, man. These two guys work their tails off to come back on the court, and they're great players. I mean, Shea talent is amazing, and Rob impact on defense and his leadership and his selflessness is like crucial to the team. I feel like so.
All right, there's Tamani Kamara. Something struck me when he was talking, and it's good. You know, Chauncey Billups came out and just opened a verbal can of whoop ass on the team, and that inspired conversation, which is good. So you address the elephant in the room and people are able to speak up. But I think one of the issues, look at the leadership on this team. So who are the leaders? I would say Jeremy Grant is one of the vets that the younger guys look to. Clearly Anthony Simons, because he's the best player on the team. DeAndre Ayton is a veteran, good player, and well-respected by the players on the team. They all love him. But the issue that I think is coming up, and the reason why Coach Billups is the one who has to do a lot of the conversation starters, is that all those guys are leaders, but they're not vocal. They're not vocal guys. Anthony Simons is a little more vocal today than he was when he came in the league, but he's a quiet type. He's not someone that's going to speak up and address the team and call guys out. one thing that Dame brought to the team, aside from his exceptional play, was leadership. It was his locker room. And so he set the tone, and he would speak up when he felt like things needed to be said. And most teams have the one guy who will step up and be the vocal leader when it needs to happen. Sometimes it's the best player on the team, but sometimes it could be somebody else, a veteran or someone that's well-respected. It's more of the emotional, or not emotional, but inspirational leader, someone that will, speak words of truth when they need to be said. But you have the youngest roster in the NBA here in Portland, and your veteran guys, the best players on the team, are not the vocal types. That could create some issues too. Because then you know how that works. If you're not a vocal type and issues pop up or there are problems, a lot of times people they know what's going on and it's bothering them, but they don't know how to voice it, or they're afraid to voice it, or they don't know how to voice it or to convey that message. So that could be part of the issue as well. I would say that there are many teams I would rather play than Minnesota when you're searching and trying to figure things out. Minnesota can create a lot of problems because they're darn good, and they're feisty, and they're aggressive, and they got a lot of different players who can kill you. So it'll be interesting just from the standpoint of seeing how they respond tomorrow. That's going to make watching those two games against Minnesota worth it. How do they respond? How does a team respond after the coach airs them out the way he did last night? That is what I'm going to be watching those two games for tomorrow. Gosh dang it. I just saw something, and it brought me back to yesterday once again. You try to forget things, and then you see something, you're like, crap, it happened.
Lutz waiting for the snap. Placement is down. Lutz's kick is blocked. It's blocked. It's blocked. The Chiefs blocked the kick. They're going to stay undefeated. The Kansas City Chiefs blocked a 35-yard field goal attempt. Kansas City wins this game on a blocked field goal. The Kansas City Chiefs are 9-0.
An attempt of 35 yards for the win. Snap, placement, kick on the way. It is blocked. I don't even know what to say. I really am at a loss for words. 35-yard field goal blocked with 1 second to go, and Kansas City is going to get out of here with a 16-14 win over the Broncos.
I mean, they did everything that they had to do. 13 plays, they eat up 6 minutes of the clock, and they go on a long drive to set up the game-winning field goal from 35 yards. They set up what was essentially a freaking extra point in Kansas City at Arrowhead in Bo Nix's first game against Patrick Mahomes. The defense did their job. Bo Nix did his job. He outperformed Mahomes yesterday. They outrushed him. They didn't turn it over. And you set up a game-winning field goal with no time on the clock. How? Oh, I hate football so much. How do you get blocked? You can't block a field goal, you idiots. Oh, my gosh. Oh, whatever. Oh, I hate Kansas City so much. I don't know why we do it. If you think about it, we don't get enough respect as sports fans, seriously. We pay all the high prices. We have to sit back and deal with all the advertisements on TV. We pay for tickets. We buy the merchandise. We live and die with every play, and yet we can't control a flipping thing that goes on out there on the field, and then stuff like that happens. I was an innocent bystander yesterday. I'm just looking for one good crumb on a crappy week, and what do I get? A blocked field goal. And then the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes running around and all happy and stuff, improving to 9-0. Oh, it was so close, I could taste it. That's all. I could taste it. All right. And we keep things moving. When we come back, we'll get into college football. What a great weekend it was, setting up future great weekends in November. Whoever said playoff expansion was a bad idea is a moron and a liar and someone that should not be allowed to speak in public ever again. These freaking these guys running the bowls, stuffing their pockets with a bunch of cash, lied for years. And now we're getting greatness, and look what it's doing for the regular season. Not hurting it, enhancing it. We'll get to that next, and then Coach Bray at 5:20. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. What's up, my friends? We got some Monday Night Football coming up in 15 minutes on ESPN. The Dolphins are in Los Angeles to take on the Rams. LA is favored by 2.5. Oregon State will take on Air Force Saturday in Colorado Springs. We're going to talk with Beavers head coach Trent Bray coming up at 5:20. Oregon remains number one in both polls after Saturday's win over Maryland. We get a new batch of college football rankings coming out tomorrow. Trailblazers blown out by 45 last night against the Grizzlies. Seventh worst loss by margin in franchise history. Portland now 3-8. They'll play the first of back-to-back games at home tomorrow night against the Timberwolves. Tip-off set for 7. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 5. It's presented by Coors Light. Tip-off on Wednesday also at 7 o'clock. More of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming at you right now. All right, coming up tomorrow, we have another edition of Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. I'll be broadcasting live from Moda Center. Every Tuesday throughout the entire basketball season, we have tickets to give away courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win. And for all of your ticket needs, simply head over to trailblazers.com. Trent Bray, head coach at Oregon State, will join us coming up in 20 minutes as we talk about the loss to San Jose State on Saturday. And we'll take a look ahead to their game coming up on Saturday against Air Force. If you have not made the trip for a game to Colorado Springs to go out there and check the Air Force, it's up in the foothills. Colorado Springs is beautiful. The surrounding is beautiful, 6,500 feet above sea level. It's a great atmosphere to go and check out a game, especially with the pageantry and the whole surrounding there. It's awesome. All right, we'll get to the phone calls in just a moment. So if you're on hold, stay there. I'm going to come to you. But we got to talk about some of this college football stuff and what's going down. I mean, just over the weekend, chaos. And this all goes back to what I was talking about last week. The playoff expansion has brought greatness to the sport because it has enhanced, not hurt, the regular season. And now we have multiple teams. Going into the weekend, we had somewhere between 18 to 20 teams that were still alive for a playoff berth. And you had teams all across the country with fan bases that still had hope for a potential playoff berth so they could be a part of the dance. Never before have we had that because of the systems that were in place, because of liars who tried to sell you a bill of goods so they could continue to line their pockets with a bunch of cash. That's really what it comes down to. And the great thing is now, once we get a taste of the playoff this year, it is not going to take these morons long to expand it even further because it's great. And what I love is the games that it's giving us with so many teams that have hope. It's awesome. Ole Miss hammered Georgia, and the Dogs now have 2 conference losses. Alabama crushed LSU and remains alive for an SEC title game and a playoff berth. The SEC could have 5 or 6 teams vying for a playoff spot. How could that potentially punk one of the teams not from a power conference like Army? How's the committee going to handle that? Indiana beat Michigan for only the second time this century, and now with Coach Cignetti is in a great position for the Big Ten title game if they can beat Ohio State at the shoe. And if not, and they finish with 1 loss, they're probably going to make the playoff. BYU was gifted a win from God with a holding penalty on 4th down late in the game at Utah. They come all the way back and get a field goal in the final moments to win that game. They're unbeaten and in position to make the Big 12 title game. How about Colorado with Coach Prime? Everyone loves to hate on Coach Prime, but here the Buffs are now after a win over Texas Tech with only 2 losses, and they control their own destiny for the Big 12 title game. And if they get into that game and a win, they're in the playoff. Not bad for a school that 2 years ago had 1 win and was the worst in Division I football. ASU, who won 3 games last year in Kenny Dillingham's first year, former Ducks offensive coordinator, they're now 7-2 with games remaining against Kansas State this Saturday and on the 23rd, BYU, and they've got a potential pathway. Army's still unbeaten, and Mario Cristobal finally choked away a game, and now the ACC will likely only get 1 team in. And then you've got the Ducks, who are on fire, unbeaten, number 1, and in full control of their destiny. So many great things to watch here. Number 1, can Indiana beat Ohio State in the shoe and earn a berth in the Big 12 title game? I love their spread option offense, and Coach Signetti's doing a heck of a job. One of the great stories in college football this year. Will Miami be able to put that loss to Georgia Tech behind them and tighten some things up as they get prepared for the ACC title game? And how is the committee going to handle the SEC, which is now a mess, an absolute mess? And you're going to have multiple teams, 5 to 6 teams vying to get in from the SEC. How's the committee going to do it? Wow. So many good games. That BYU game was crazy. They had the quarterback, Retzloff, sacked at the goal line. And then you're like, oh, a flag, and it's a holding penalty. And then BYU somehow, someway, with no timeouts, gets in a position to kick the game-winning field goal. And they were outplayed the entire game. They do look like a team of destiny because they've won a couple of games this year where you're like, wait, what? How'd they win that game? Their wins over Utah and Oklahoma State a couple of weeks ago are unreal. It's really good. So much good action. But that's what the playoff is giving us. And how about Georgia getting smashed by Ole Miss? You know, the more I look at the playoff now after this past weekend, Oregon can beat anybody in the country. They can beat anybody. I thought that maybe Georgia might be the one stumbling block for them, but now I'm like, you know what? Screw it. They can beat anybody. They can. If you're a Duck fan, you should be highly aroused and geeked up because your team's never been in a better position than the one they're in right now. And they're winning games the right way with their defense and at the line of scrimmage. And Dylan Gabriel's a super stud. What else do you want? The only downside for Oregon is that with the new playoff, they may have to beat Ohio State a third time and Georgia. But if you win a national championship beating Ohio State 3 times and then you get over on Georgia, you can give the ultimate middle finger to anybody, and you can take that one to the grave with you knowing that it was a beautiful national championship. There's no flukes anymore. If you go through that gauntlet, you deserve the championship. It's unreal. Let's go out to Sandy. Sean wants to jump on board. Sean, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, brother. I just wanted to let you know that's a heartbreaking loss of the Broncos yesterday.
Horrible.
But the Blazers' loss was not a heartbreaking loss because this is a team that hasn't had any goals. So this is a team that has really no expectations. This is a team that went out there and shot 4 for 42 from three-point range and 23 turnovers. So if any team that ever wins a game shooting 4 for 42 and 23 turnovers, there's something wrong with that. And that has nothing to do with effort. I don't know if shooting three-pointers, what kind of effort is that going on there? I mean, I understand turnovers. You got to have a little more effort in, passing the ball and not just like lily lob passes. I understand that. But this is a team with youngsters that's playing for an organization that these kids are just a reflection of their leadership. And the leadership starts upstairs. So, I mean, when you're playing for a team that's tanking, so if I'm a player playing for a team that's tanking and the roster's all constructed, screwed up, and then I'm being called a loser, I don't know how I'm going to take that, especially when I'm a 20-year-old multimillionaire. I don't know how I'd be kind of like looking at it like going, hey, coach, I know that like it's us against the office, but this is the reality. So I don't know how this is going to go. I hope team don't start turn on coach and coach starts whipping them too much, because this team is a team with really no goals, no expectations, and then you think we're going to go out here and start winning games and things blow up in our face and we shoot 4 for 42 and you expect me to go out there and think it was my effort? I don't know, Chad. I'm a little I'm a realist. And I just want to say also, I want to reach out. This is my first phone call since Brian Wheeler passed away. And he's a member of Blazer Nation, the Blazer family for life, brother. And I just want to say a tremendous caller, one of the very best. When Wheels came aboard, it was not an easy transition when he took over for the mayor of Rip City. And but shortly after, we embraced him, and he brought the energy. There ain't no announcer in the United States, nobody ever brought the energy and the passion for a team like Brian Wheeler did. Thanks a lot for letting me voice my opinion. You guys have a great night.
Appreciate it, Sean. Thank you. Yeah, Brian Wheeler was great. His energy was impressive. Well, part of the reason why the Blazers can't make threes is because they're not a good three-point shooting team. They're one of the worst in the NBA. They don't have a number of guys who can knock it down, aside from Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons. And Simons right now is going through an early season three-point slump. Look, I don't expect the Blazers to win every night, and Coach Billups doesn't either, but what he wants to see is some fight, scratch, and claw. And when you have a 2-on-0 fast break and no one's hustling down the court, that's a problem. It's a problem. And they should have been called out for the lack of effort last night. So I had no issue with what Coach Billups said, but it is a messy situation right now. And my main concern is the ultimate goal, talent acquisition and then player development. And you want to make sure that the environment that you're developing the young players in is the best it can possibly be. Let's go out to Victor in Turkey. Victor, my friend, welcome.
Hi, Chad. Nice talking to you. Thanks for your time. I had a pleasure as a non-native American or non-citizen American citizen that I had this privilege to see Brian Wheeler personally in Big Al bowling alley in Beaverton, in Beaverton area on Barrow Road.
Big Al's.
Yeah, if you know where it is, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can bowl there. They got food. You can play the games. Yeah, it's a good place to hang out and watch games. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was 2015, 2016 that when I went there, I saw a big guy over there, and he had another lady, kind of, helping him. And when I looked at him, I went close. It was too dark inside. And when I went closer, I saw that was, William Wheeler, and then I talked to him personally, and I said, I really love you, We shake hands, that was quite I never forget that, and also he was one of my, favorites. And one of the words he said, Chad, I don't think you displayed in your recording about Brian. One of his words that I like, he said, if it was a fish, I throw it back.
Yeah, that was one of his great sayings.
If it was a fish, I throw it back. I love that. I love that fish thing,
Yeah, no, it's good.
I never thought.
And my guess is when you met with him, Victor, when you met with him at Big Al's, he was probably very gracious with his time, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. I don't know what he was recording. I don't know what he was doing. I don't. It was. I don't think it was a Blazer game. It was something else that he was kind of a promotion or something. But as I said, they had a couple of other ladies around him that from Blazer organization that trying to set up something in Big Al. But I don't know what was the reason that he was there. But he wasn't playing bowling, But he was on the microphone.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I'm glad to hear you share that story. If it was a fish, I'd throw it back. Yeah, he was great. And he spent time with you, and you got to hang out with Wheels. There's so many people in town that have a story just like that. All right, when we come back, head coach at Oregon State, Trent Bray, is going to join the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive. Very happy to go to the phones and welcome the head coach at Oregon State. It is Trent Bray who joins the show once again. And, Coach, I appreciate your time. I felt deflated after watching the game on Saturday. It was a tough loss. How are the players doing after the game on Saturday, and what was your message to them?
They were, we were all disappointed in that, especially if we had so many opportunities to put points on the board and didn't. But I've been impressed all year and still am with. We show back up on Sunday and you watch us practice and you wouldn't be able to tell whether we won or lost. They just went to work. That's been impressive and encouraging to be around. And then that's the message. We're process oriented, and it's about getting better every day. And if the process is right, the results will come.
That's great. I respect the way your guys compete. You mentioned the offense. You racked up 474 total yards. You crossed the midfield line on 8 of your 10 possessions. Aside from turnovers, what were the other issues you noticed on film that prevented you from being able to convert more of those opportunities into points?
It was just critical errors in the wrong time. Doing a good job driving the ball down the field, then down in the red zone. Just a guy missing an assignment that leads to a tackle for loss or something like that hurt us because we had 4 red zone possessions where we only got 3 points out of it, out of those 4, so killed us.
Yeah, in the third quarter, you had that solid drive, 8 plays in your first and goal at the 4. You had a chance to go up 10 at that point, but it ends with a 4th down incomplete. When you look back at the film, would you have handled anything differently, or was it just missed assignments that prevented the opportunity to score at that point? What did you think in retrospect on that drive?
No, that was the right decision and to go for it because when you look at the ability to go up 2 scores versus stay at 1 score, go up 6 instead of 10, the favor leans if you can get up 2 scores, the chances of you winning go way up. So I think we handled it right. The calls were good. It just, San Jose did a good job, and then we didn't execute like we need to.
We're talking with Oregon State head coach Trent Bray here on the Rip City Drive. I saw the report today that you said Ben Gulbranson will remain the starter for next week's game at Air Force. Looking back at the film, how did you think he managed the game against San Jose?
I thought he did a good job. What he did well was, he called the game, made the checks we needed him to make. We had explosive plays in the pass game down the field, which is something we've needed to do and have wanted to get. We got those things. He just had the negative on the day for him were the 2 turnovers. And but as far as what he did for the offense, I thought he did some nice things.
I was wondering with Ben, with everything he's been through with the program, he's a grinder. How much does his experience and poise help on the field, in the locker room, and in the meetings with other teammates?
Yeah, it's big to have. Anytime you have leaders in the locker room, he is one. He was voted a captain. He's a guy that's been through a lot and then has a lot of experience and can share wisdom of great times and low times. So he's a great voice for those guys to hear from.
With your defense, I know it's hard to blitz a team that gets the ball out so quick. But with your front 4, when you looked at the film, what were some of the things that prevent you from getting the pressure that you would have wanted to create in that game?
It's just winning the one-on-ones. We created a lot of one-on-one matchups, and we got to win more of them. I mean, it's as simple as that. There are times we need to be a little bit more aggressive in getting after the quarterback, but at the end of the day, if you can't win one-on-ones with a 4-man rush, it's going to be a long day in the passing game.
Aside from the negatives, Coach, what were some of the positives, things that you liked that your team did when you went back and reviewed the game?
I thought there was great balance on offense. Ran the ball well and was able to get something going in the passing game. And then on defense, I think we continue to get better in run defense. That's over the last couple of weeks. That's been something that has become, like it has always been the last couple of years, a strength for us. So we need to continue that. And but those were the two big things that I saw.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of individuals who stood out. Trent Walker had his first game, I believe, where he was over 100 yards receiving. Yeah, I've had a chance to meet him. Good young man. He's playing well. He's a walk-on. What did you feel about his game and the season he's having for you so far?
Yeah, I think he's having a great season, and he's just steady. He's reliable. He runs the right routes at the right depths. He's going to catch the ball. If I'm a quarterback, he's the guy after my first read I'm going to. There's no question. So I think that's what he brings to us. We can always count on Trent to do the right thing and be in the right spot.
What does that do for your program to have an example of a walk on a guy like Trent who comes in and works hard and creates opportunities for himself?
Yeah, I think that's big, and that's always been something here at Oregon State that's been a great thing is the walk-on program. There's been many walk-ons in my history here that have not only become great players but NFL players. Katan Oladapo last year and Jaden Grant and all those guys. So I think it's great when you have guys that come in and earn the spot. They earn their respect through their work, and it's great to see.
Another player, freshman running back Salahaddin Allah, provided some nice pop in the backfield. What did you think about his performance and finding a kind of a change of pace there in the backfield for you?
Yeah, it was great to see him kind of come alive there. He had some real nice carries, some good runs for us, and I think as he gains more experience, he just continues to get better, which is what you're looking for, especially out of young players. And it was great to see. And he still left some stuff out there where he tripped and fell on one that he might still be running. So there's things that he can continue to get better at. But it was great to see him kind of start to be the guy that we knew he could be.
Yeah, that's great. I was talking with Brenden before the show today, and we both appreciated the way he performed out there. Now, as a defensive coach, I've always been curious about this because you hear people talk about it, but how challenging is it to prepare a defense for an unconventional offense like Air Force with that triple option?
Yeah, it's you kind of like we didn't watch the film on San Jose as a defense. We got right to Air Force, and we'll actually watch the San Jose film before Washington State because that's what's going to help us with Washington State is watching San Jose. And so you got to just get right to it, and you kind of have your own set of rules for this week. It's a unique defense, unique set of rules that you don't do against anyone else, and so getting right to it, and it's all about discipline and eyes this week.
Yeah, I always hear coaches when they're preparing to play a triple option that it's all about assignment football. What exactly does that mean in terms of your eyes and assignment football when you're playing the option?
Yeah, there's always going to be a dive, a quarterback, and a pitch, and everyone needs to be on that work. And then they're going to read you, and they're going to make you wrong if you got a guy out of position. And because they always have an answer inside, in the alley, and on the perimeter, they also do. They create one-on-one tackles, and so that's what you got to be really good on assignment, but also be able to make that one-on-one tackle in space at times.
I mean, are you surprised with football? You've got the different hash marks, so you've got a true wide side of the field. And with the option, I guess the idea is always to get the ball on the perimeter where you can have your big plays. Are you surprised that more teams don't run a triple option with the ability to get to the wide side of the field in college football?
No, because just like there's strengths to the triple option, there's weaknesses. I think it has to fit your personnel and what you want to do. But it also is an offense where if you get behind, it's hard to come back. So I think there's all positives and negatives to every offense.
We're talking with Trent Bray here on the Rip City Drive. I know that this will be the first meeting between Air Force and Oregon State, but have you ever been a part of a team that played up at Colorado Springs there at Air Force?
No.
6,500 feet above sea level. How much of an impact do you think the altitude will have?
You never know till you get there and how your team reacts. We didn't have any issues, the last couple times we've gone to Boulder up in Colorado or Utah. So it'll be interesting to see, but we'll take the proper precautions and oxygen on the sideline and roll people and try to keep guys fresh for sure.
How's the team health-wise overall coming out of the San Jose State game?
We're about the same. We didn't lose anyone that we think we won't be able to play against Air Force. We had a couple guys leave the game, but they should be fine.
All right, Trent Bray here on the Rip City Drive. They'll be meeting Air Force on Saturday. Coach, I appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you guys take on Air Force and an opportunity to go out and compete again. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
You got it. There's Trent Bray, head coach at Oregon State, here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Brenden, my man Brenden from Beaver's Edge, who was at the game on Saturday. What were some of the things that jumped out at you as that game was playing out? When you knew beforehand that Ben Goldbranson would get the start, what were some of the things that jumped out at you throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, there were a couple, Chad, for sure. I mean, you guys covered a couple of them. One was Salahaddin Allah and what he was able to do in kind of reserve of Anthony Hankerson. I think he, again, showed something we haven't seen from the running back since Jam Griffin as far as a kind of different kind of zip and pop, a little shiftier kind of between to the edge of the tackles rather than between the tackles. So that was kind of good to see. Defensively, some concerns. I mean, going into the game, we were talking about it, how, Oregon State's defensive game plan really had to be to stop Nick Nash, San Jose State's best receiver and one of the yardage-wise best receivers in college football this season. And, he made his impact early. I think he had something like 130 yards on like 4 catches by the time halftime came around. They had another receiver go up over 100 yards. So, this was the second straight game where we saw Oregon State really struggle against the pass. And, it's kind of always been a different story the last couple weeks. Sometimes it's been against the pass, sometimes against the run. But again, you look at the injuries that they have. That side of the ball, there are some, I don't want to say excuses, but reasons as to why I think that they're struggling. Offensively, Chad, there has been some inconsistencies, and I don't really know if there's been a good reason for it, and that's one of my big takeaways on offense. They just haven't been able to score. I know that, like, San Jose State and Cal don't have terrible defenses, but not like their defenses are world beaters either. And to score 2 touchdowns against the total against those two teams the last 2 weeks, kind of the offense that we saw that could kind of grind everyone down with a strong run game, it's kind of subsided a little bit. So there's definitely a lot of questions. I think that this Air Force matchup offers a really good opportunity to bounce back and kind of get off the schneid, so to speak, and end this losing streak. But at the same token, as Trent Bray just said, different rules, different disciplines. Air Force, they've been doing this for a long time. And Coach Calhoun, he's obviously a local guy who I'm sure loves to play, Oregon State or Oregon whenever he gets the opportunity to. So I think it'll be a tough game. And I see Oregon State is favored as we enter this game. I think it'll be a pick-em type game, Chad. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
You know what I'm wondering with their future, a lot more settled now, knowing that they're going to be a part of a conference. They got new teams coming in. They're going to continue to grow the Pac-12. I wonder if that's going to help them. And now they're going to have a head coach going into the offseason cycle. I wonder if that will help them at being able to land a more sure thing at quarterback, either through recruiting or through the portal.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I can't speak to the sure thing on quarterback, but I look back to Washington State this last year, Chad. Obviously, last year for Washington State, real rough year, right? I can't remember exactly what their record was, but they had a nasty losing streak. Didn't end up going to a bowl game. Obviously, Cam Ward takes off. They obviously had John Mateer on the roster, so it's a little bit different. But I look at Washington State, how very quietly everyone kind of looped them into the same category as Oregon State heading into this year. And quietly, they've been much better. And I think that's because of coach continuity, right? And Jake Dickert, they obviously went to work after having a bad year last year and got about how to fix it. And they've been much better this year. And, looking ahead to what the future schedule is going to be and what it is, and, obviously Trent Bray being here, I don't doubt that Oregon State could kind of right the ship, with a good offseason, bring in some good players. But like I mentioned to you, Chad, when we were kind of discussing, talking about this segment, at a place like Oregon State, I just don't know how many misses you can have in the transfer portal. And, as we sit here 4-5, just a few games left, you might have to say Giovanni McCoy was a miss in the portal, right? And that's the most important position that plays on the football field. So there are definitely a lot of questions, but I'm with you. I think there needs to be a serious discussion thought, is the quarterback for next year on the roster? If he's not, then let's go get him. Is it, are they going to invest in the freshman who's coming in this year? Probably not, but hey, got to ask the question. So I think those are some of the issues that I would start with. And then, heck, next year, you get as many guys back on defense that you lost this year, you're naturally going to be better. So, there is optimism still. It's obviously a little tough to find right now as Oregon State's mirrored in a 4-game losing streak and it's got a couple tough opponents left on the schedule. But the opportunity to bounce back this weekend against Air Force is definitely there, Chad.
All right, I wanted to ask you one more question. You mentioned a few players that you were concerned about maybe being plucked off through the portal by other teams. Who would those players be?
Yeah, a couple guys that come to mind. Defensively, I'd keep an eye on Thomas Collins, defensive lineman, relatively young in his career, but he's been one of their better linemen when he's been healthy this year. Linebacker Melvin Jordan. If I were to say right now, Melvin Jordan might have a case to be your overall best player on the team top to bottom. Like he's a very good middle linebacker. I think he'll be definitely his services will be after. Maybe a couple of the young guys in the DB room. Exodus Ayers has started as a true freshman. Definitely, coaches across the country like to see that kind of experience. Offensively, probably a little bit less, but again, you're still curious about what happens with like Anthony Hankerson, who still has a year of eligibility left. He's shown capable of being able to be a 100-yard per game guy, and also definitely in the backfield as a receiver as well. Not a lot of concerns right now at receiver. Maybe there's a guy that departs, but mostly I would say just some of the big guys on defense, and then maybe you lose an offensive lineman here or there. But it's a good question, Chad, because that's the defense you're going to have to play every year, whether you be Oregon State, Washington State, or one of these schools that are looking on the outside looking in at power conferences. You're going to have to play defense, and maybe that's something where when you have a budget of NIL to spend on players per year, you have to make tough decisions, or maybe you have to pick some guys can get a raise, for lack of better terms, and some guys you're like, hey, we can pay you what we paid you last year, but not much more, and that's the nature of the beast in college football now. So I'm sure there will be some attrition, but if I'm Oregon State, you got to lock down those guys who were your good players this year if you can.
All right. Air Force on Saturday. So they need to win 2 of their final 3 to get in, right, for bowl activity?
They do. I mean, again.
So Air Force will be 1, and then they have to play what? Boise State and Washington State?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So I guess you can ask for a Reser miracle, Chad. In my lifetime, I've seen miracles happen at Reser Stadium. They aren't beating Boise State on the blue. So I'll say that. So it's.
Well, I think the more important question is how many yards and touchdowns will Ashton Genty have at the end of that game? That's the more important question. 400?
3+ in my opinion. I mean, that is going to be his Heisman game, right? I mean, obviously they'll go to the Mountain West Championship and that'll be that, but like regular season, Chad, against a former Power 5 team, like that is his audition. Go out there and show it. I mean, I imagine they're going to run the ball, put the ball in his belly a lot.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Got a couple other thoughts. Maybe if I got time, I'll get to the Eberflus audio. The Bears are a disaster, too. Just when I get mad about that stupid blocked field goal from yesterday, it was really dumb. How can you not block a field goal in that spot? You're professionals, for crying out loud. I could be a Bears fan and be very miserable. I have a good idea. Let's keep Eberflus as coach. Why? Get an offensive guy in there that knows how to develop quarterbacks so that he can get rid of all the bad habits that Caleb Williams has. He's too much of a talent and a potential superstar to waste on incompetence. Figure it out. All right, tomorrow I'll be down at Moda Center for the Rip City Drive from 3 until 5. And then Chris Burkhart will have Blazers Game Day at 5, live from Moda Center. It's all presented by Coors Light. And my man Sean Heiken, our Trailblazers insider, will join me live from the Pines at Section 330 at 4:20. And I can't wait to get his take on what went down on Sunday night with Coach Billups and the reaction from all the different guys who were at practice speaking today. And Sean was over there. So we'll talk with Sean Heiken, our Trailblazer insider. He'll join us at 4:20 tomorrow. And I'll be live from Moda tomorrow and Wednesday because the Blazers play back-to-back home games against the Timberwolves. So that's what's going on. Right now on Monday Night Football, first quarter with just over 3 minutes to go, the Dolphins lead the Rams by a score of 7-0. And as I mentioned before, the AFC playoff picture is coming into shape now that we're getting deeper into the season. There are basically 6 teams that we know are going to be a part of the playoffs, and there's 3 teams who are battling for that 7th and final spot. So if you look at the AFC East, one team's going to make it. That's Buffalo. They're 8-2 and in control of the AFC East, and one of the 3 best teams in the conference, along with Baltimore and Kansas City. In the AFC North, 2 teams for sure. Right now, Pittsburgh leads the division at 7-2, and Baltimore is right behind them at 7-3 and on fire. But their pass defense is, well, it needs to improve. But Baltimore is legit, and Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are MVP candidates playing out of their minds. And Lamar Jackson was a freak in that fourth quarter on Thursday night and then went over Cincinnati. That was a great football game. And Houston right now in the South, they're leading the division 6-4, coming off that heartbreak loss last night to Detroit. They're going to win that division. And the AFC West, 2 teams for sure, Kansas City and the LA Chargers. So right now, your 6 teams that I can guarantee you will be in the playoffs at the end of the year: Chargers, Chiefs, Texans, Ravens, Steelers, Bills. That's 6 teams. The 3 teams right now competing for the final and 7th spot in the West or in the AFC are Denver, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. And Denver will face both of those teams down the stretch. But that's I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But that's why that blocked field goal was so dumb, because if Denver would have, executed like NFL teams do 99% of the time in that situation with a chip shot field goal, and they would be in full control. But no, they had to get their field goal blocked. Whatever. It's so annoying, and the Chiefs are 9-0. So there you go. 6 teams that are in for sure. 3 teams, Denver, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati vying for that final spot. But Bo Nix looked pretty good yesterday, and I'm pretty excited about that. In the NFC right now, the Eagles and the Commanders are the 2 teams that are going to be in from the East, and they're going to be challenging each other for the top spot to win that division. In the NFC North right now, Detroit, they're the best team in the NFC, maybe the best team in the NFL at 8-1. They're in. Minnesota's in, and Green Bay's in. That's 5. In the South, there's going to be 1 team in, Atlanta. Tampa Bay now 4-6 after yesterday's loss to San Francisco. And then in the NFC West, Arizona at 6-4. They lead the division. The 49ers at 5-4, and the Rams right now at 4-4. And how about Arizona right now with Kyler Murray? It's pretty remarkable, but they have won 4 straight football games. They beat the Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, and Jets. Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, Jets. And they'll be in Seattle next. I like the way they're playing right now. Good defense. Kyler Murray's playing good football. Yeah, it's nice. Now, one team that's not going to be in is the Bears because they're a disaster, and they got rocked 19-3 by the Patriots yesterday. Here's the brilliant genius Matt Eberflus after the game.
As a head football coach, all disappointed, accepting accountability, for everything, and then really just looking inward at myself, and that's what I asked the players to do too. Take a good hard look at everything and play good complementary football.
Yeah, they did, coach, and they don't think you're doing a good job. Here's Eberflus talking about his play calling.
We'll look at everything. I think it's look from everything from the top to the bottom and making sure that we're finding the answers to move the ball on the field, play better as a football team on offense, defense, and special teams.
That sounds like a guy that knows he's about to get fired. And the question is, who's going to get fired first, him or Metamucil guy? McCarthy? Which one? Here's Caleb Williams after that loss.
I had about 2 or 3 plays and key moments of situational ball that it didn't click in my head. 2 was taking 2 sacks, 2 or 3 sacks in situations where we were able to get a field goal attempt, and then I put us out of field goal range, not throwing the ball out of bounds or over one of my wide receivers' heads or dirt and things like that. And then I think it starts there.
All right, there you go. Yeah, they need to hire an offensive guy. Just look at what Washington's done. They bring in Dan Quinn, who knows what he's doing, and they hire Kingsbury to be the offensive guru, who knows quarterbacks, who his biggest strength is looking at the guy that he's got and then building an offense to suit his talents. And Jaden Daniels right now playing great football. That was a terrific football game yesterday with the Steelers and the Commanders. And Russell Wilson, who everyone hates, got it done in the end.
Wilson settles back, raises the foot, gets the snap, back to pass, looking, going to float it up left for Williams, and Williams makes the grab in the end zone. What a throw! What a catch! Mike Williams in his first game in a Steelers uniform has hauled in a 32-yard touchdown strike from Russell Wilson.
It's a great throw. You know, the one thing that Russ has brought to the offense is the big play. The big throw downfield, the deep ball. And they're averaging like 30-plus with him in the lineup and playing good football. And with that defense and that run game, if he just protects the football and does what he does, they're going to be a tough out. They're a problem because they run the football extremely well, and they've got probably the best defensive player in the league in T.J. Watt, and they're very aggressive. I like the Steelers. I like their organization, and I like Mike Tomlin. That's a tough guy. And can you imagine what Mike Tomlin – you thought Billups was tough. Can you imagine Mike Tomlin if he was coaching the Trailblazers after that game last night? Man, Mike Tomlin's a serious dude, and I respect him a great deal. There you go. See, Brenden, the good thing is you don't have an NFL team per se, so that limits the frustration in your life.
It sure does. But to your point, I'm having to search for other areas. My Trailblazers are having a tough year. My Beavers are having a tough year. Unlike you mentioned earlier, I can't hang my hat on Oregon's success, so I'm looking elsewhere.
All right. I got to put that field goal behind me. It's only a blocked field goal. What's the big deal? It's only a game. It's only a game. It doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things, right? If that were only true. Well, it matters. You got a chance to beat Patrick Mahomes, and you line up for a 35-yarder and you miss. All right, big thanks to Coach Bray for joining the program. Also to Kenny Vance for coming on and sharing his very real emotions about Wheels. That was greatly appreciated. A big thanks to the newly rested Brenden Slaughter. We're back tomorrow. Rip City Drive at 3, and then game day starting at 5 with the Trailblazers and Timberwolves tip-off at 7 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. It's presented by Coors Light. Have a good night, my friends.